Well, in Orange County this week, the show starts with Heather trying to broker a little peace between Tamra and Jen, who is still fired up and screaming at Tamra that she doesn't have a soul. Heather tells Jen, listen, everything that you're talking about happened over 2 years ago, and I feel like you're really overlooking the part that Shannon played in all this. Jen tells Tamra that she needs to be careful because her mouth has gotten her into trouble before, and then she turns around and storms out the door. Then Tamra explains to Heather how a couple years ago, some guy came up to her at her gym, said that he used to be friends with Ryan, and he's shocked at the fact that he has the nerve to show his face after he was named in a lawsuit, something about selling timeshares in another country and stealing their HOA fees. Tamra says that she sent it to Shannon, and when Shannon saw it, she went crazy because also named in that lawsuit was Leslie Bedore's ex-husband, and Leslie Bedore is David Bedore's current wife. So you know Shannon wanted all the dirt on that. Tamra says that Shannon asked her if she had anyone who could look into the investigation, and Tamra said that she could ask her friend's husband, who is an attorney. And then Tamra says that Shannon obviously didn't show her the entire text thread or she would have seen Shannon's involvement. Then Heather breaks the tension and says, well, she looks really good. Her stomach looks amazing. And Tamra says it was a really good tummy tuck. Then Jen shows up at Katie's door, fresh off her argument with Tamra. Katie can read the upset in her face and says, let's go get a drink. Then Shannon meets up with her two very hungover daughters. They took the train in from Paris to meet their mom in London to celebrate her 60th birthday. They ask Shannon how it's going with the other girls, and she says that it's been terrible with Tamra. The daughters say that they have a toxic relationship. And then they try to change the subject and ask their mom if she's been dating. And Shannon says, no, like she's offended. And the two daughters say, don't worry, Mom, it's okay. We're pretty dry right now, too. While Shannon's hanging out with her daughters, Heather, Tamra, and Gina meet up for champagne and caviar. Tamra tells Gina about the visit that she got from Jen, and Gina says, yeah, I know, she's agitated. Then Jen, Emily, and Katie go to lunch at a local pub. Jen orders a Malibu and rum. And once they sit down, Jen tells them that Shannon came over this morning and showed her all of the things that Tamra had been digging up on Ryan. And Emily says to Tamra, well, when Tamra doesn't respect someone, all bets are off. Back at the other lunch table, Gina tells Tamra, I saw those text messages and this is bad and it makes me wonder, I mean, if you'll do this to her, will you do this to me? And Tamra goes, please, are you a con man like him? And then Tamra says to Heather, hey, listen, I need to tell you something. I went candle making with Katie and our daughters, and her daughter started to tell me something. And when she did, Katie goes, oh yeah, listen to this, listen to this. And her daughter Kylie went on to tell Tamra that she babysat for Emily's two young sons. And while she was babysitting, she said to them, hey, do you know a lot of your mom's friends? Because my mom's just getting to know them. And these two 8-year-old boys said, yeah, but we don't like Heather. She's mean to our mom. And Kylie said, what? Why? And the boy said, because she's bossy. Then they cut to Emily saying that it was actually Kylie that made those comments to her sons. And of course it was, because it's always going to be the 15-year-old girl that's fighting her mom's battles, not the two 8-year-olds. Heather is shocked and upset. She's tearing up and she says, so you're telling me that she said things about me to her daughter, who then went to these little children and said things about me. And then Heather says, I'm out with her. And to use your kids as a megaphone is a whole different kind of insanity. Tamra says that Katie tries to play the nice girl routine, but that really she's calculated and manipulative. Then we're in Jen's hotel room and she's talking to Ryan and telling him about what a soulless bitch Tamra's being to her. Then Shannon says so long to her daughters and all the ladies head to an English dining etiquette class. And along the way, all anyone can talk about is poop. Shannon hasn't pooped in days and because of it is feeling like poop. And Emily is having the exact opposite issue. She can't stop shitting. Once the etiquette class is over, they all go around the table and play pit and peek. When it comes to Tamra, she says that the peek was having caviar and champagne, but the pit was having Jen storm into her room screaming at her about something that Shannon actually provoked. And Shannon says, you're lying, Tamra. And Tamra says, I'm not lying. You're lying. You called me. You're a liar and you're a drunk. And everybody gives Tamra the hairy eyeball. Jen tells Tamra, you need to stop. And Tamra says, why are you defending her? And Jen says, because since I've known her, she's been more of a friend to me than you've been. I want you to leave me alone. I want you to leave Ryan alone. Have you talked about him this year, Tamra? Have you talked about a Ponzi scheme? Have you talked about him being a bookie? You better watch your mouth. And Tamra goes, why? Is he going to put a hit out on me? And then Tamra gets another hairy eyeball from the whole table. And Heather says, you're not doing yourself any favors by talking like that. And Tamra says, I apologized to Jen earlier. And Tamra says, and honestly, all I was doing back then was having a conversation with the person that used to be my best friend. And I'm not going to let everyone turn that around on me. And Gina says, that's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to have you take responsibility for your own part. Then Tamra turns to Jen and says, what do you need me to take responsibility for? And Jen says, I'm good. So Tamra says, so we're good? And Jen says, no, we're not good at all. What I'm saying is shut your fucking mouth. And Jen's delivery made everybody's nipples hard. Except maybe Tamra. Well, probably Tamra too. Then all the women go back to their respective rooms. And when we're with Tamra and Heather, Heather says, I didn't look at Katie the entire night. And Tamra says, neither did I. And then she says, and did I ever tell you about the fact that before the reunion last year, Shannon called me because she wanted to get Taylor Armstrong's husband involved to find out if Gina really did push Travis down these stairs. And Heather says, what? And Tamra says, yeah, there was an article. And then they flashed the article up on the screen. Heather said, that happened? And Tamra says, Shannon's mentioned it multiple times. And then Heather says, are you going to tell Gina? And Tamra says, I think she needs to know. The next morning, the girls all get up and head out, but before Shannon's group can go anywhere, they need to deal with her and her constipation problem. Shannon's whining and crying about the cramps and saying that she needs an enema. So they all split up and commence Operation Enema. And their team consisted of Shannon, Gina, Katie, and Jen. Meanwhile, over in the park, Heather, Tamra, and Emily sit down to discuss what was really said between Katie's daughter and Emily's son. Emily assures Heather that her kids did not say that and that she would never say anything negative in front of them. And Heather says, I just find this whole story so incredibly disturbing, but I'm not surprised that Katie's attached to it. Then we're in the bathroom with Shannon and her enema, and Katie, and Jen, and Gina. And it is gross. The ladies finally get to dinner, and Heather can feel some distance between her and Shannon, so she turns to Shannon and says, are you turning your back on me for a reason? Are you annoyed? And Shannon says, can we talk? The two of them go outside and start rehashing everything that happened in Sonoma all over again. Shannon says, I feel like that night you didn't have any compassion for me at all. I thought maybe you would have come up to me and said, hey, how are you doing? Is everything okay? And Heather says, whoa, this feels like a spin job, like you're trying to control the narrative. This reminds me of what you did with your ex-husband, David. Shannon says, I was trying to save my marriage. And Heather says, of course, but you were also dripping information out when it was beneficial to you. And while those two are outside talking, inside, Tamra turns to the table and says, you know, I was up all night because I was so upset, and I was wondering, what would Shannon's motivation be? And then Tamra turns to Gina and says, what would you say if I told you that Shannon dug up dirt on you and consulted an attorney to find out whether or not you really did push Travis down the stairs? Would you be upset? And you should have seen Gina's face and the exchange between her and Emily. Gina goes, is that what happened? And Tamra says, yes. She walks over to Gina and says, it's your friend Shannon that's actually digging up the dirt. Gina says, yeah, this complicates things. And just then Shannon walks in and she looks at her and says, we have a problem, Shannon. Tamra told me that you were trying to dig up dirt on Travis and me. And Shannon says, blame me. Blame me. Shannon says, that's it. I'm out of here. And on her way out the door, she passed her own birthday.